All right, here we go. And hey, what's going on, everybody? Rob here from McDojoLife. We were finally able to jump over the Great Firewall of China and get to my guest today, which is Ramsey Dewey is in the house. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Hey, I actually flew over the Great Wall of China. I'm actually here in Los Angeles, California right now on vacation, hence the breach of the Great Firewall. So I'll be here a couple of weeks over in LA for all the fans in Southern California.
Well, congratulations on all your success, man. You definitely have a really strong following. I think it's a mixture
Thanks.
between your ability to call out bullshit and make light of it and make it funny, while at the same time trying to explain the better ways of doing things, in your opinion, of course. And then also, you have a very narrator's voice. It's a very commanding narrator commentator voice, which I don't have.
Oh man, I get so many comments on the voice, it's shocking to me. It's honestly shocking to me because when I was younger, the thing I absolutely loathed about myself the most was my voice. I hated the way I sounded. I hated the way I sounded if I heard a recording of myself. And yeah, so now it's so shocking to me to hear people say things like, "Oh, you should do radio, or you should do voiceovers," things like that. But what's fascinating is recently a lot of people leaving YouTube comments have been accusing me of faking my voice. It's a fake voice. You don't really sound like that because apparently I really sound like Mickey Mouse on helium or something.
Well, I mean, you seem to have a fan like seems like Brian LaFleur here. If I pronounce your name wrong, I don't care. He said you have the god of radio voices, which that's a compliment, man. I have to say you have a sophistication thing going on. Kyle Pritchett says he watches your channel all the time, which is awesome. That's nice that you got a fan up in here watching. So it's pretty cool, man. I'm glad that you have such success in what you do because I think that there's a good I don't know what you would say. I think there's a little contrast, but not a lot of contrast. I think we're both in the same business in terms of martial arts and wanting it to grow and develop legitimately. I think that having bullshit and
Sure.
con artists out there is rough, and it really does detract from people who do a great job at what they do. Um, I will say this: obviously, we go about this two different ways. So maybe you can kind of explain to people what exactly it is that you do who aren't familiar with your work.
Okay, I'm a mixed martial arts coach. I coach my primary job. Believe it or not, it's not, but I coach the sport of mixed martial arts. I also coach kickboxers and grapplers. So that's my primary work. A few years ago, my wife came to me with a women's self defense video that she showed me, and she said something like, "This looks pretty good," and I watched it, and it was terrible. It was terrible to the point of being dangerous. And I thought, man, if my wife, who is a highly intelligent woman, could buy into this, then man, what does that have to say about everybody else out there? And I had this idea. After one of my classes, I got a couple of my students together and said, "Hey, let's just try these out against actual live resistance because they never use live resistance in these videos, and just see what happens." And so we did that, and we filmed it, and we put it up on YouTube, and um, it kind of went under the radar for a while, up until later. So Joe Rogan, he shared it like on Twitter or on it, one of those websites. And suddenly, after 13 years on YouTube, with like 1,000 people following me, I logged into YouTube one day and saw there were 10,000 people subscribed. And I thought, what happened right there? And then 20,000. I was like, what's going on here? And this video got so many comments. This women's self-defense video was just exploding. And people brought it to my attention. Oh yeah, Joe Rogan shared this. People are watching this video. They want to see more. And I thought, oh, okay, well, let's find more bad self-defense videos and try them out, see what happens.
Any of them.
So that's obviously not all I do on my channel. I mean, there's technique, there's sparring, there's just life vlogs. My daughter showing you how to make waffles, just random things like that. But what people really seem to come back for is, just testing stuff out and see what works.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating because I have to say that's pretty much how I got started with all this too. I mean, shit, I was doing I've been a martial arts instructor pretty much the majority of my life, and I was just at a kid's summer camp. We were running a summer camp at the Jiu-Jitsu academy I was at, and then my phone started to vibrate and it just didn't stop. And at first I thought there was something wrong with it, so I just shut it off and I put it back in my pocket. I didn't even look. And by the time I came back, it was because of some Joe Rogan mentions on his show. And then he talked about like the podcast or my McDojoLife for like 15 minutes on the show. And I was like, holy shit. And now it's all I do for a living. So it's very powerful that what they call the Joe Rogan effect. You know, it's like,
I know, right? It is crazy to me that one man can wield that kind of power where with a click of a mouse, he can grant you a certain level of fame. But at the same time, you know, it's up to you to build on that, if you will. But yeah, still mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Now, me and you were talking about this a little bit before, and you know, I'm like, I'm not a big gotcha question kind of guy. Like, I don't think that's fair. I don't like to blindside people, but we had spoken a little bit off air about you and Master Wong. So I want to know a little bit more about how that has kind of come into fruition. I did have him on the show about a week ago. I wanted him to be with you. It basically just didn't work out that way, unfortunately. But I would definitely like to hear a little bit more about your side of things and what you think about Master Wong and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought that was fantastic that you had him on the show. I was following your Instagram about that, and I noticed a number of people were writing really negative things like, how could you, of all people, have Master Wong on your channel? And you basically said, look, I just want to hear the man out. What's so wrong about that? So I think that's awesome, man. That no matter whether you agree with someone or not, you can still hear them out, you know. Freedom of speech in action.
I mean, it's fair. I hate bias, man. This shit's so rampant. It's just like, talk to people. Who gives a shit? If you agree with him, you agree. If you don't, don't fucking watch or don't listen to what he has to say. But don't bitch. You know.
Seriously, after living for a decade in a country where freedom of speech is interpreted very, very differently, that's really refreshing to see, to be honest. So I thought that was super cool. You had him on your show, and you know, gave him that platform. So Master Wong, how that all started, I had a bunch of fans, bunch of subscribers and viewers say, hey, make one of those women's self-defense videos technique. And I didn't really watch Master Wong. I first heard of him from this Australian client of mine who would come in to do boxing. And he would say, hey, have you heard of this Master Wing Chun guy? I was like, no, what are you talking about? He's like, I don't know if he's for real or not, but he's like crazy. And he's like, you can use Wing Chun to destroy any martial art or whatever. And I looked him up, and I thought, man, this guy's techniques are untestable. It's like rip his groin off and feed it to him right in his mouth and just all this other crazy stuff. And I was like, yeah, we're not going to test that out. But, you know, people kept sending me these requests, do one about Master Wong, do one about Master Wong. And so I noticed he put up a video about the rear naked choke, and I looked at it. And some of the details were off, like, you know, he's not applying constriction to the carotid arteries. And I thought, whatever, you know, it's not that big of a deal. But then I noticed there was another one, and another. He made like a dozen videos about the rear naked choke. I thought, oh, okay, the rear naked choke is testable, it's demonstrable. Let's make a video about that. So the video essentially, it's a cleverly disguised rear naked choke tutorial. The basics of the choke, you know, put the squeeze on, all that. But I think what really got people was the thumbnail. So I had a picture of Master Wong and one of his students applying the choke, and you can see the space in the neck and all that, and a picture of me and one of my students applying the choke. And one side said, fake, real, can you tell the difference? And I had no idea the ramifications of that thumbnail that would get people watching that. I thought, okay, maybe like 1,000 people watch this, and the viewers who asked for it will be happy. Moments later, 300,000 views. What's going on? And a load of comments, a number of which were furious. Master Wong has some very dedicated fans, I'll give him that. And man, they were furious. They were out for blood.
Yeah. And so what was the thumbnail? Like you said, the thumbnail was what made it, in your opinion. So what do you think it was about the thumbnail? What did it look like?
Well, on one side, Master Wong and a student doing the rear naked choke. On the other side, me and a student doing the rear naked choke. Rear naked choke, can you tell the difference, was the caption. Fake, real. It was those words, fake and real. And I think that's really what got Master Wong. What I was referring to is fake choke versus real choke. I think the way he interpreted that was fake martial artist versus real martial artist. Now, obviously, the man has practiced martial arts throughout his life. And so, anybody who dedicates their life to martial arts, they're a martial artist. And there's nothing fake about that. But again, jiu-jitsu, it is 100% testable, 100% demonstrable. So the rear naked choke, can you do it? Can you not? Does it render your opponent unconscious or does it not? That's the message I was trying to convey there. But I think what ended up happening was a cry for blood. People immediately started calling it a beef. There's this beef between Ramsey Dewey and Master Wong. Master Wong and Ramsey Dewey need to fight now. which is kind of crazy because at that point I'd made one video about Master Wong and that choke. On the other hand, that first self-defense video I made about, what's her name, Lena Marty, and her women's self-defense that was just terrible. I made 7 of those.
Is that the chick in New York? The New York self-defense chick who does the, horrific.
Yeah, it's terrible, but I got something to say about that too. Lena Marty, even though that was a terrible video, I've actually got a great deal of admiration for her in the aftermath. Because of that video and the backlash that she got on that self-defense video, she actually started taking martial arts classes. Now, I don't know if they're great martial arts classes or not, but she stepped outside of her comfort zone and went to another source to learn how to do it the right way, hopefully. So
I know. So I talked to her. I tried to get her. She still won't do it for some reason, and I don't know why. I tried to get her on the show. She agreed twice and then canceled twice.
Okay.
Because she's a legitimate fitness instructor, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what she does for a living. Great shape, obviously a great coach because I've seen some of the results and work that she's done with other people. But she agreed. She was like, yeah, I want to come on and I kind of want to explain to people my side and just let people know what happened. And I was like, this is a great platform from that. I'm like, that's what I'm all about, is just getting to the bottom of stuff. And I think it's good and cleansing for this video to be out in contrast to the other video being out. So that way, whenever people are like hating on you, you can be like, look, I made a mistake. Here's my apology. You can check this out. And I think people would respect that, but she's still yet to do so. And it's killing me because you know, and I know that she's made a change and she's turning her life and she's trying to get over that. And she's trying to learn legitimate martial arts, right? She admits to the mistake, but then she won't just do that publicly. And that's killing me. I'm like, please just tell me you fucked up, man.
It would be a great show. It really would. And in a great twist of irony, what she does is a fitness trainer. And I started following her on Instagram, and she posts like before and after pictures of clients. And it's just helping a lot of people like change their lives and lose a bunch of weight and stuff. She's probably saving more lives as a fitness trainer than anybody in the realm of self-defense instruction has ever done, saving lives out on the streets, if you will.
Yeah, it sucks because the only time I ever see her stuff come up, and like in my realm of what I do, I'm sure probably the same as you. Now we both follow her on Instagram, but in our realm of work, the only time she ever actually is relevant is when that video pops back up because it's just up garbage. And I mean, I just wish, I wish you would just come on and just be like, yo, finally, I'd like to just say, hey, this was because of this. Here's the reasons why. Here's what I'm doing now. So many more people would respect that lady. And what even kills me worse is I think Tech Insider is the people who did that original video. They keep sharing it. And so like it'll be dead for a little while. And then like 6 months later, they'll share it again. And it'll just explode. I'm like, dude, why would you put yourself through this torment? Just like tell people what was up, man.
Yeah, man, those women's self-defense videos, they keep getting recirculated and regurgitated and rebranded, all these different channels and forms of media. And somebody's got to put a stop to it. But what's fascinating, going back to Master Wong, is that nobody called it a beef between me and Lena Marty. It was just like, okay, that's bad self-defense technique. But as soon as I mentioned Master Wong, all of a sudden it was a beef. It was a rivalry. A fight needed to happen. So that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. So, I mean, and while we're here, we might as well talk about it. Like, what is your actual opinion of Master Wong? Because, like I was telling you before, I actually got a chance to sit down and meet the man. I do think that he's very much misunderstood because of his persona online as opposed to how he is in real life. I think that he's much different in real life.
Sure.
The way he portrays himself. And I think he even told me that when we talked about, like, that's a little bit more entertainment value and stuff like that. What do you actually think about the man? Have you gotten a chance to actually talk with him or anything?
I've never spoken to him, but after the beef started, I looked into him a lot more, because before this I never watched his videos, didn't really know who he was, but as a person, and you don't see a lot of this online, but as a person I learned the guy does charity work. He goes out to Vietnam and he like helps these poor, underprivileged, homeless kids and stuff like that, who don't have education, all this, and that is tremendously commendable. So shout out to Master Wong for that, because there are so many people in this world, especially like out in Southeast Asia, these places like that that need that kind of help. So man, that's tremendous. But another thing that's great is he doesn't really advertise that. Like, I had to dig to find that information. So, as a humanitarian, man, my hat goes off to him. Absolutely.
I actually learned about something just to add to that, not to interrupt, but to add, because I get hit in the head for a living, so I will forget what you said in a second. Like, he is starting something that have you ever heard of the Budo brothers?
No, what's that?
So basically, like, they're just like two guys who like just really enjoy the martial arts, and they're doing their own ways of trying to build up their platform and stuff like that. But I met them at the Super Show, and I did an interview with them, and they're doing something that is pretty interesting in terms of charity work that I think most everybody can get on board with. I'm hoping they launch it soon because I'd love to advertise it. But basically, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get 1 million people around the world who can't afford, no matter where they are in the world, who can't afford martial arts lessons, for 1 million of those people to be allowed basically like a like sponsorship from martial arts studios to allow them to train. Their goal is to get at least 10 open spots in any martial arts studio to be readily available for them. So like anybody who's got, like, let's say you got like 200 students and you got like 10 extra slots in there, to basically donate those spots for kids who can't afford it to allow them to train for free. I think that that's going to be pretty fucking interesting, because in my opinion, I think martial arts has done nothing but help my life. I know it's cliche, but I don't care. It's true. I'm allowed to do what I love for a living because of martial arts. I had confidence because of martial arts. I stopped getting my ass beat every day because of martial arts. I appreciate it, right? So, and I was fortunate enough to be able to be afforded. So I think that it's interesting, but he's one of those people that's on board with pushing that. So I think that was pretty interesting.
Oh, that's fantastic, man. Now, personal life aside, let's go back to the subject of Master Wong. What do I think of him as a martial artist? Again, it's hard to get to the meat of what and who he is as a martial artist from his online videos, because again, it's this crazy over the top persona. It's like a character almost. And you see the stuff like grab his crotch and rip it off and feed it to him. That's I think it's there largely for entertainment value. But what the thing that bothers me? Yes, I'm gonna talk about something that bothers me. Is what happened after I made that video. He made a response, and he was angry, and I understand that. I get that, and he was venting like, how dare this guy, I'm not even going to mention his name, but this guy's an idiot, and all this other stuff. And man, his poor assistant, Jim the assistant, man, he was just throttling, like, trying to demonstrate his rear naked choke or whatever, and how it's for the streets. And I love that soundbite. I sampled it and, man, used it in a bunch of my videos since for the streets. But
You know, you sent, to just add to that, you sent me that video of you doing the announcement for that you were going to be on my show, and I
yeah,
didn't actually catch that that was his sound bait until like 3 or 4 times that I had heard it, and I was like,
oh yeah.
"Oh shit!" I was like, "Oh, okay, I got you." So I mean, well done, but you know, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a full song, a hip hop song. I've never written a hip hop song. I don't even listen to hip hop, but I've started writing a song based on that soundbite for the streets. Not so much about Master Wong, just about this concept of the idea that what how can I put this, street defense, when people use that as an excuse to excuse bad technique. Like, well, my technique doesn't have to be good because it's not to fight a professional fighter. It's not to fight anyone who knows what they're doing. It's to fight some schmuck. But I think the problem with that is that if you are going to be attacked on the street, if you will, if you're going to be attacked by a violent psychopath, it's because they feel they have a significant advantage. Numbers, weapons, the element of surprise, etc. So this fantasy that we're going to have an advantage over some weak, flimsy person who's going to attack us out on the streets like an extra from an old video game like Double Dragon or something like that, where we can just take him out with a few quick hits. That's a fantasy. And I saw this video recently, and it was horrific. It was absolutely brutal. This CCTV clip of this woman who was attacked and completely without warning, just walking down the street, and this guy just jumps out, hits her, knocks her out, and just proceeds to stomp on her, just soccer kick her over and over again. And I'm watching this, thinking about the way self-defense videos are taught, as if you could be prepared for that kind of situation, and it's not. I mean, a lot of people have asked me who've seen that video, like, how would this woman have defended herself? And the honest answer is, there is no way to be prepared for that situation. I mean, you can't be prepared to be taken by surprise.
You know, when they talk about like how to protect yourself against a sucker punch, like you don't. That's the whole point of the name, is like you didn't know it was coming, and so now you're hit. Like there is no way to protect yourself against something that's unexpected. I don't know if I mean, it's rare I get to talk to somebody who's actually kind of in the same wheelhouse of what I do, so it's kind of nice to be able to talk to somebody who's also looking for bullshit all the time. But like for instance, the Bujinkan Ninjutsu people, their 5th degree test is utterly ridiculous. Basically, what they do is they have you sit in like a seiza position on your knees facing away from the instructor. The instructor has a shinai, which is a bamboo stick, like shaped like a sword. You see it a lot in kendo and sword fighting arts.
Yeah.
And he's standing behind the person, and basically the person has to sense when they're going to be hit with this stick and get out of the way before the stick cracks them in the head. And of course, most of the videos are just people getting cracked in the head with a stick, which I think is the funniest shit ever. But the idea that they're not using, like the fact that they're on a mat and you can feel weight distribution change on the mat, you can hear rustling behind you in a silent room. That's not a sixth sense. That's called the other senses that you already have. And so like, but the way that these people try to defend that is so culty and terrifyingly creepy. Like the head of that organization takes a sword, and what he tries to present as a real live sword, and he straps it to his head, and he saws his face, and then he takes it off of his head, and he's like, "Ta-da, no cut." And I'm like, "No shit, it wasn't live blade." Have you run into any of the crazy ninjutsu stuff yet?
Some years ago, there were actually some ninjas who trained at my gym, and they were good people. They were nice people, and they did some really questionable technique. But you know what I liked about these guys, and the reason I didn't have a problem with them, is they were realistic about what they were doing. They were essentially cosplaying as ninjas for fun. And, you know, they were having a good time putting on their costumes, going through the motions. None of them were delusional that they were going to go out there and win street fights or whatever with their goofy technique. But I actually invited these guys to come join my MMA class, and a couple of them did. And they were super open-minded, and a couple of them, you know, actually did pretty well, you know, learning legitimate technique. And yeah, that was a great trade. So on the other hand, if I came up to them and said, "Y'all suck, man, you guys are doing a bunch of nonsense," man, that would have closed the dialogue. So, you know, they never would have come and trained with me, and that would have been the end of it. So that's one of the big problems, including, you know, calling somebody out on the internet, as like Master Wong, for example. As soon as they are wrong, they'll close off to you. Something that situation and the choke and that whole fiasco reminded me of about 12, 13 years ago, something like that. One of my first YouTube videos, I made a few videos about jiu-jitsu and MMA, and I had my very first gym, and it was back in the United States in Utah at the time. And I was coaching some guys, and I put up this video on a triangle choke escape. And for me personally, it worked pretty well with the guys I was training with. It worked pretty well, and I thought this is really good. Nobody else is showing this technique online, so maybe people can benefit from this. And I put this up, and I got this comment from Jeremy Horn, you know, UFC champion Jeremy Horn.
Yeah, of course.
And he basically said, "This is terrible. This is garbage technique, and you're going to get people hurt." And my instinct was, "How dare you say this to me, world champion Jeremy Horn? How dare you tell me that?" And, you know, I held my tongue a bit, and I thought about it seriously. I was like, you know, this guy has a whole lot of experience that I don't have. He knows something about this technique that I don't know. Let me think about this critically. And so I picked his brain a little bit, and he gave me some really constructive feedback. Harsh, firm, but constructive feedback. You need to fix this and this. And, you know, I took his advice to heart, and I became a much better grappler because of it. So I'm incredibly thankful for that experience. But at the same time, man, if I'd closed myself off and said, no, it's right. I need some confirmation bias to prove that I'm right. And oh man, that would have held me back in the dark ages.
See, to me, that would be the most fascinating video you could put out. If you actually went back, found that video, and did that to yourself, that would be amazing. Think about the impact that would have if you took your own technique that you taught years ago, went back and said, "Let's test this," and then went, "Well, this doesn't work out maybe the best way. Maybe there's a better way. Here's something that someone told me." Like, clowning yourself is the best way to fucking get ahead online. Just to be honest, like, I put myself out there all the time for people to rip me apart, and I have to say, like, pretty much keeps most people at bay because they're like, "Well, I'd hate on you, but you're already doing it, so fuck." Damn you for being self-deprecating, you dick.
No, that's
I think that story.
That is a great.
If you think about how you go ahead.
I'm gonna do that, man. I'm totally brilliant idea, man. As soon as I get back to the gym, that is exactly what I'm going to do, man. Whew.
Well, it's fascinating.
I'm trying to think
because I think that people need to hear that. I mean, especially like with what went on with you and Master Wong, and like obviously, like you said, there's no real beef. It wasn't like you were calling him out as a fake martial artist. You were just saying that this technique, which I think is a misconception with a lot of times I post this shit. They're like, "Oh, you're calling this person fake when they did all these great things." I'm literally going to be posting a video of Anderson Silva teaching a knife defense technique tomorrow. Does that mean that Anderson Silva's utter garbage? No, he would murder me with his hands still. Like, I get that. But can he teach this particular knife self-defense technique in this scenario? No, it's hot garbage and will get you stabbed in the face. And like, that's kind of the point. It's looking at the moment, not looking at the entirety of the person. It's important that we understand these little things. And no, but I think that would be incredible, especially for people to understand that this has happened to you too. You have been called out as well before, you know?
Yeah, man, that's a great point. Thank you, my friend.
Right, I'll watch the shit out of that. I'll watch that on repeat.
No, that's a great idea, man. I hope I didn't delete that video. I may have just said it. I'm gonna have to double check on that one.
I hope it's there. I hope it's there somewhere.
I
But I
hope
mean,
it's there too, man. I hope it's there.
yeah, I'm sure you know the technique and stuff, and at least you can kind of explain. And I hope it's there as well, because you can even take that little clip of Jeremy Horn saying, "Hey, man," and like you like post that up and show people, like, "Look, I've been here." Like, we all get called out. The truth is, all of us are going to get called out eventually, because nobody is fucking perfect. It's just the truth. We all make mistakes. Our goal is continual growth. And if you watch a video of me as a white belt sparring, it's going to look like a mentally handicapped person who's trying to have a dance contest to bad music. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's going to look bad.
Yeah.
We're all going through those stages, and then there's always holes in our game that we need to improve. And if you catch any of us on any given day, depending on our attitude, our mood, our outlook on life, how we're feeling that day, if we're sick, any of that crap comes into play. Or maybe we're just being sarcastic, and you catch that little clip, that one little clip, and that goes out into the airwaves. Sometimes it's just how you're remembered, and it doesn't have to be that way. What I try to encourage people to do is, if I call you out, challenge me on it. Tell me why you're so fucking awesome. Come on my show. We'll discuss the context in which you did your thing, and then people will know. I could be wrong. Like, it happens. Whoops. We move on with our day. I think what most people don't understand as martial artists is how those clips are interpreted by other people doesn't matter. It's how you interpret your reaction and how you deal with it. That's what really matters. If you're like, fuck it, I'm Anderson Silva, I'm like 80-time world champion, don't give a shit, then you're not going to care that I posted this video of you doing this horrific knife defense. You're not going to care. It's a small moment in your life. But if your ego is that fragile to where literally 60 seconds of your life can be seen and be ripped apart by complete strangers who will never speak to you, why do you give a shit? You know, why do people care? And I think it's just an ego thing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So one thing I always try to keep in mind. I know you have what is it, like 5 rules for what is a McDojo, something like that. 5 really simple things.
Very specific rules, yes.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. Like people see like, oh, this guy makes fun of McDojos or something, and so they mistakenly think like, oh, this guy makes fun of people who are not good at martial arts, and that's a very different thing. Or people who are inexperienced in martial arts. Just really quick, would you mind telling anyone who might not know what your 5 rules are?
Oh yeah, definitely. So they're really easy. So one we can all agree with, it's the easiest one, is no pedophiles. There should be no pedophiles in the martial arts. Really, there should be no pedophiles around children, period. But it happens. There's actually a gentleman who runs 3 academies called Warriors Cove. Anytime I say these, I always make sure that people are aware of that gym, because I think it's important information to know. But he was accused and pled guilty to, whatever the reasons were, he still pled guilty to molesting a 15-year-old girl in his home. And he was, because of the plea deal that he took, he's still allowed to be around children, and he wasn't put on any type of registry. And so to me, once you molested a kid, no matter what the circumstances were, you molested a kid, especially if you pled guilty. You should not be around children. And as a matter of fact, for a jiu-jitsu, as a very self-regulating community, much more self-regulating in my opinion than most others, I'm amazed that the dude's still around. Not only around, but successful with 3 studios. So rule number 1 is no pedophiles. Rule number 2, don't lie about your belt rank or your fight record. If you're a blue belt and you're teaching a white belt in your garage, I don't give a shit. If you're a blue belt and you decided to open up a martial arts studio, right? I don't give a shit. Just be honest. If you're like, yeah, I'm a blue belt. All right, cool. You're still learning, but you know more than the white belt, hypothetically. So, like, you're helping people. You're still helping. So just don't lie about that. Or like Charlie Zelenoff, who lies about his fight record. He says he's like over 200 fights and when there's video of him getting destroyed by Floyd Mayweather Sr., getting destroyed by these great boxers. Because
oh, man, that guy's a fascinating character.
Oh, yeah.
Sucker punches people in the gym and
yeah, he's a dick.
But yeah.
You know, again, he's more than welcome to come on the show anytime too, because I call him a dick to his face. But it's fucked up what he does to people. He assaults people and he gets away with it.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing.
Absolutely.
So that's rule number 2: don't lie about your belt rank or fight record. Rule number 3 is shady business practices. So don't rip off your students. Like it's pretty just martial arts studios, but regular gyms will just randomly close their doors one day. not tell any of the people who attend there, not tell anyone who works there, and just be like, no, we're closed. Be like, dude, I paid you. It's the first of the month. Like, am I getting that money back? No, we're just closed. You're ripping people off. Or I've heard of one where these people, the dude, he's here where I live. I'm not telling you because I get death threats, but he's where I live, and the dude was basically going door to door and strong arming people for their money, for their tuition. He was like, if you don't give me your money, I'm gonna beat the hell out of you at their houses. And so like that's shady, you know. So that's rule number 3 is shady business practices. Rule number 4 is unsafe training conditions or cult-like behavior. Like your instructor is just that. They're your instructor. You know, they're not your end all be all. They don't know everything. You don't need to follow them blindly into everything that they say. You need to use your common sense, but a lot of instructors have a really powerful way of speaking to their students to manipulate them. And I think that's jacked up. It's very culty. Or you have instructors who convince their students that me punching you in the head as hard as I can is going to condition you. So you should just stand here and take it. You know, that's going to give you a concussion, you know, and it's going to make you not want to come back. You get your ass beat. So
it is a position of trust that can be horribly abused.
I agree. And I'm trying to think of the last one. So what did we say? Oh, and no touch knockouts is number 5. So I'm pretty sure I did 4 up to this point. But no touch knockouts is number 5. You can't knock people out with your mind. You can't poke me in a succession like you're trying to unlock a keypad in my arm and make me fall asleep or pass out or even be manipulated to where I'm frozen. Like, it doesn't work that way. I've been in the industry for 22 years. I've been around all types of different martial arts. I've had the opportunity to train under some amazing people. I've had the opportunity to fight and get the shit beat out of me. I've had the opportunity to be on stage in front of thousands of people and get the shit beat out of me. I've won a few of those, but I lost a lot, right? I'm the king of second place. And when you're doing a kickboxing match, second place just means you lost, right? So, but those were real, and those were real experiences that I can take to the classroom and say, you know, even though I might not have been the greatest, I can at least tell you what it feels like to be in the locker room while you're waiting to go into a ring. I can tell you what it's like to be prepared for an 8-week training camp. And I can tell you what it's like to go in that last round and go, fuck, this sucks. I don't want to get off this stool. But I can tell you another thing is you can't just touch me and knock me out. I don't give a shit how long you've been training. You have to hit me pretty goddamn hard and correctly for me to be knocked unconscious. And I'm just blown away by how many people who get put into those situations. But if you look through any of the things that I've posted, I stick to those rules. And if you pick out any one of those things, I can tell you which one that rule is breaking easily. Like, I never post videos of like the dude, and like they're funny to me, but I never post them, of the dude like in his house punching and kicking the air like by himself. Like, what is he hurting? He's having fun. Who gives a shit? You know, he's not teaching a class. He's enjoying martial arts. Fuck, good for him. You know, it's funny because he's terrible, but you know, like it's not the point.
That's fantastic. It's a fantastic list because it ensures they're never personal attacks. They're never ad hominem attacks, and that is so important if you are calling somebody out on bad behavior. So one thing that I think is so important also for me anyway is the context of a time frame. For example, you mentioned if you showed a video of you as a white belt, you know, it would have been terrible. Obviously, everybody is terrible when they're white belt. Nobody knows what they're doing when they're white belt. And so if you took the greatest fighter in the world and showed him when he knew nothing, yeah, we could all laugh at that supposedly. But where was I going with this? I was going to make a point.
It happened.
But yeah, I've had a number of people send me videos and say, "Hey Ramsey, do one of those expose type videos on this," and I'll look at it, and it's a guy who's inexperienced, and I hate that. I'm not going to make fun of a guy who is inexperienced because of his inexperience, and I'll tell you why. Because I've been that guy, man. Learning how to move, how to fight, it was like I would describe myself as naturally kinesthetically retarded. Like I have a degree, a college degree in modern dance. And that
Really?
yes, I do. Yeah, modern dance from Brigham Young
All right.
University, and that was the most difficult thing, physically I had ever attempted to do in my life because I naturally trip over my own feet,
Mm.
which is what I did on day one in my first dance class. I literally tripped over my own feet doing the simplest sequence, like walking in a square. Who are giving it the old college try, but struggling. Everybody starts somewhere. I understand. And I'm never, ever going to poke fun at somebody because of that. In fact, I'm not going to poke fun at people in general, but that's what people want to see. I know they want to see, beefs. They want to see rifts, name calling.
Mm.
No, I'm not interested in that though. What I'm interested
Yeah.
in is the truth. I always say martial arts is a pursuit of the truth. Nothing more and nothing less. Does it not? Will this
Mm.
technique allow you or not?
Yeah,
Man, I
it's
have
also a
this.
truth of yourself, figuring out what's your personal, what you're made of, honestly. Like because I guess what I've always been told is that the mat doesn't lie. And I have to
Yeah,
say, I don't think that you really know somebody until you actually fight them, which is to me
yeah,
still rings true. Like, it's very easy for somebody to lie and manipulate and cheat and steal from the outside. But when you put gloves on with another human being and you're standing across from them, there is no opportunity for lying because you're not speaking. Everything that you say you can either do or you cannot do.
yeah.
How you fight people is basically how you act in real life. And I've never sparred somebody that wasn't the case. Like, if they're sneaky and how they handle day-to-day activities, then they're a sneaky fighter. If they're very direct and to the point when they fight you, they're very direct and to the point with what they tell you. And every time I've ever put on gloves to somebody, I've gotten to know them so much quicker during that round, that 3-6. I hate putting on timers, so sometimes 30-minute round where you're just tiptoeing around and just having fun. Like, I've gotten to know them way better in those interactions than I ever did speaking with them. I don't know if you feel the
Yeah.
same. That's how I've always interpreted people.
Absolutely. Movement doesn't lie. Martha Graham, one of the pioneers of modern dance, said that. I think Bruce Lee said something similar. But yeah, they were right. Movement doesn't lie.
Mm.
And yeah, there is an unspoken conversation taking place in a fight. There is this exchange of wills that in a verbal conversation. So yeah,
Mm.
that's a fascinating point.
Well, even when you're verbally arguing with someone, they always say, like, whenever you're actually angry, whatever comes out of your mouth is the truth when you're mad. And it's just because you were holding those little nuggets in your mind, which I try not to do, but we all do in some way, where you hold these little nuggets in your mind. You're like, maybe it's not appropriate for me to tell this to you right now, but as soon as you're mad at them, you're like, well, fuck you, because blah, blah, blah. You're like, oh my God, how do you feel that way about me? It's like, well, this is the truth. I'm just telling it to you in a loud manner out of my voice box now, rather than like me holding
Uh,
it, like holding it. Sometimes you just got to tell your friends they're full of shit. They're like, no, you're lying. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm not mad at you. But whenever you're actually in a confrontation with somebody, the truth always comes out. It's just how it goes. I don't know why. I'm not a psychologist. Somebody did ask you a question
yeah.
though. Here,
Okay.
they said, "Hey Ramsey, have you trained in traditional styles before?"
Yeah. Quite a few actually. My first martial art was Taekwondo. I also trained um, Poeta. I trained Dojo. I
Hey,
used
hold on a second.
jujitsu styles.
Your microphone
What's
cut
that?
out right when you were explaining. So could you go down that
Oh,
list one more time?
is sure. Yeah, I did a bunch of traditional martial arts. I did Taekwondo, Shokan karate, traditional martial art, but because it's form and things like that. I with the weapons. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and I did a few Japanese jujitsu styles, Budoshin. That was that was an experience, but yeah. And since then, like since I moved to China, I've had a lot more exposure with some traditional kung fu styles, Tai Chi Chuan in specific, Tai Chi. And that's one that has left a really deep impression on me because for the first couple of years I was in China, I saw the old people in the park doing the slow flocking movement together, and I thought, okay, they're doing it for their health, and they are, it's great for you. But about nine years ago, I met an actual master of Tai Chi Chuan, and it is not what I thought it was at all. Because people always talk about it like they call it an internal martial art, which is a term that often gets conflated with no-touch knockouts and all this garbage that doesn't exist, like invisible chi energy. And I think a lot of that confusion has to do with a linguistic misunderstanding. Because Tai Chi is Cantonese, Tai Chi Chuan is Mandarin, and so they're mixing up chi from Cantonese with chi, which are totally different words. One is air, breath, energy, and the other is the Cantonese word for what is like basically means a really great, to give it a very loose translation. Okay. But what I learned is it's a grappling art. Like it's not chi nonsense. It's a. So this old man, he was 80 years old at the time, a guy named Yu Dao Shui. I went to train at a Su province north of Shanghai with a friend of mine, a Chinese friend of mine. We spent 2 weeks at this Sanda camp doing 3-a-day trainings, and it was awesome. It was a great experience. And on the last day, the coach, who was a former national Sanda champion of China, he said, "We're going to go train with my Tai Chi instructor." And I thought, okay, that'll be a nice way to end this really tough camp. And we'll do some relaxing, slow motion movements or whatever. That'll be fun. It'll be a nice little cultural experience. So I get there. There's this man stomping around doing a form, and he's like, "Hey, come here." And when I say old man, I don't mean like decrepit and whatever, because if you've been to China and look at the old people, for the most part, they look way different than the old people that you might see in America, for the simple reason that they tend to be more active. They're not all kung fu masters, obviously not, but they tend to be up and walking and doing ballroom dancing in the evening or doing Tai Chi in the park. They're moving. And movement is the best medicine. It keeps you alive. It keeps you healthy. But this guy was fit, like really physically fit. Like this guy could do backflips and gymnastics and do the splits holding his leg up over the head and all this crazy stuff like that. And so he said, "Fight me." He wanted to spar. And I thought, oh, he wants to do that silly push hands thing. So I come over and try to push him, and he throws me, boom, on the ground, like hip tossing me. So I get up, I'm like, what the heck was that? What just happened? And we're not playing on mats. We're out in a courtyard with stone tiles, and I was like, ow. Oh man, hurt my elbow pretty badly. So he's like, again, this time with power. So I'm like, okay, I'll get an underhook on him. I'll get the double underhooks. He won't be able to do anything. So, I try to grapple. Tai Chi is a grappling art, and he throws me again. Boom! And, this went on for some time, and eventually he's like, punch, kick, do that UFC stuff. And this guy was good. Like really good. Like I had a very hard time laying a hand on the guy. He's like slipping my punches, head movement, all this great stuff. And, I tell this story to a Western audience, and I get some very confused reactions. Like people, I think they believe I'm telling a story about mystic powers. But what I'm telling is a story about a man who was physically fit and trained for 1 hour every day since childhood, without missing a day. Like I asked him, like, how long do you train? I was expecting him to say something like, I went up on a mountaintop and trained with monks for 40 years. No, nothing like that. He trained consistently every day for 1 hour before work. Like he wasn't even a martial arts instructor by profession. He was a chauffeur. And man, that impressed me so much. The power of consistency over the power of cramming, if you will.
I do have a question about this because Tai Chi, there a lot. I think a lot of people don't know that. That's something I was aware of just through studying a lot of people's bullshit, to be honest. But you know, the more you study people's BS arts, the more you learn about them. You learn a lot, and some of the stuff you're like, oh, well, this translated from here, and this came from here, and this is like an off branch of something legitimate. They just made it up. So there's a guy named Adam Misner, and so Adam Misner teaches Tai Chi, Taiji, if I remember correctly, is how it's spelled.
Yeah,
but
it's the Mandarin spelling.
Yeah, and so whenever I was working on my documentary, which I'm still working on the documentary about understanding thick martial arts and understanding where all the history and the culture comes from and how people fall into the traps. One of my first shoots was one of the seminars I thought he was going to be teaching. And so on their website, it had day and location of the city, but no real location. So it was like, it's going to be on this day, but no time. And it's going to be in this city, but no location. And I was like, okay, but they had a link to where you could pay for the seminar. And I was like, okay, I'll go pay for the seminar. So I paid for it. It was like $150. And I was like, all right, well, it'll be worth it for the film. And so I have to email them because there's no phone number to contact. When I emailed the gentleman, they wrote me back. I wrote a long diatribe like, hey, you know, I'd like to learn a little bit more information about what it is exactly you're going to be teaching. Could you help me out understanding this a little bit? All that stuff, right? And then in there, I was like, but also I'd like to know the times and the actual location, so that way I can go. I've already paid. And all they sent me back without any like formal writing or anything like that. They just sent me a time to be there and the location, and that was it. They didn't answer any of the other questions, what was going to be covered, none of that stuff, right? So I was like, okay, so I had my camera guy. And in the email that I wrote them, it did say, hey, I'm filming a documentary. I'd like to be able to film a little bit of the seminar, not to be rude or overstep bounds, maybe even just B-roll. Like, it doesn't have to be you teaching, because I know some people are really weird about that. And so I show up with the cameraman. We get there early, and I thought it was going to be Adam Misner who was going to be teaching. And it's one of his understudies, who's a huge fucking guy. I have to say, he's a big-ass dude. He was like, I'm 6'1", and he was probably an easy 6'5", so I had to look up at him. And he was probably an easy 280, if not bigger. But it wasn't like 280 fat. It was like 280 fucking big. And so we get in there and we start doing our stuff, and we start working on the seminar we're doing. And so as we're doing the seminar, we basically don't move except for twice in a matter of 4 hours. We don't move. They have us hold positions and postures and just stand there and don't move at all. And it was like 20 minutes at a time for this. He was like, we're going to go through our basic postures, and we just stand there and like hold the pose and just in silence. He doesn't explain why. He doesn't explain what the pose is for. He does none of this. And I've heard of
this sort of thing happening.
Yeah, it's so weird. And so at about 4 hours, he has us take another water break. And, you know, of course, they were like, no, you can't film. So my camera guy went and filmed any damn way somewhere up on like we were in a valley of like the mountaintops of like this park in LA. And so like he went up to like one of the higher end platforms and just started filming any damn way. But about 4 hours in, he was like, all right, guys, we got about 2 more hours left. And in my head, I was like, we've been here for 4 hours and we have not moved. I was like, first of all, my back is killing me because we haven't moved. And second of all, I'm pretty sure I'm sunburnt because we've been standing in the hot LA sun for 4 hours. There's no shade. So like, I'm good. And during that time, he was talking about like feeling the chi develop in the palms of your hands, and you can feel the energy coming off. And the strangest thing was that, to add to the cult mentality, was 2 of the people who were beside me in this circle that we were in were doctors, actual PhD doctors, certified doctors. And they were they weren't like doctors in like any kind of field other than medicine. They were actually like surgeons, from what I could understand. So they worked on the anatomy. And like every word he was saying, they were just hanging on to. And I'm just like standing around. And if you ever watch Adam Misner's stuff, he's like poking people in the chest and they're falling down and collapsing. Then he's talking about like how it's basically like, you know, it's not wrong. He speaks in circles. So he's like, it's not hard, it's not soft, and it's not fast, but it's not slow. Do you understand? I'm like, no, I don't fucking understand what you're saying. Like, pick one. It's one or the other, you know?
Oh man,
And so like
this.
he's one of those representatives that I think makes it look really bad. Because he is talking about mysticism and he is talking about touching people and them falling over, but he's got a huge cult following. It's crazy.
Yeah, man. This since I learned what Tai Chi Chuan actually is, that it's a grappling art. It's very similar to wrestling. It shares a lot of the same techniques as wrestling. Um, it makes me so angry when I see this. The bastardization of Tai Chi. When people believe it's magic, it would be like if 300 years from now, people misinterpreted. Let's say nobody does wrestling anymore. Nobody does freestyle wrestling anymore. But there's a memory of it, and there's a cult built around it. But instead of wrestling, people let's and to zap each other with magic, but they call it wrestling still. That is essentially exactly what has happened to Tai Chi over the years. I don't know why, but that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really culty and it's strange. And I think that's the kind of thing that worries me because those are the kind of arts I feel will get people hurt because they've been convinced, mentally brainwashed to believe that these techniques will actually work on a non-willing participant. And then when they go out into the world, that whole something is better than nothing thing echoes in their head. We're like, well, I might not know MMA and I might not know jujitsu, but I know this and that's better than nothing. And then something happens in my mind, which is always the thing, is they get mugged or they get into a fight at a bar or they get into a fight with a relative at a barbecue because that person got drunk and now they're pissed off at him for some reason. But whatever the case, then they try to poke him in the chest and hope they fall over. And then they just decked with a right cross and their entire world shatters. Like that dude over
Oh man,
in your neck of the woods, dude. Zai,
yeah,
or is that what's his name?
Shu Xiaodong.
Yes,
Shu Xiaodong.
that dude is like the epitome of basically the drunk guy at the barbecue challenging you to a fight and you thinking that you can fight them with your magic kung fu powers. You can't. He will beat the shit out of you. And he keeps doing it. And the proof of the brainwashing is in the masters. The masters are agreeing with fights. Just say no. They're like, no, I'm not gonna do it. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, they would save face. Like saving face, that's a big deal in Chinese culture. The idea that if somebody makes you lose face publicly, that's fun. And so
Yeah.
I think however these conversations go down, I'm not sure, between Shu Xiaodong and the guys he beats up. I think he puts them in a position where they feel that in order to actually have to get in the ring with him. But at the same time, if they didn't, I don't think anybody would care. But it keeps happening. I think I have a theory as of why. Not so much why that keeps happening in China, but why invisible chi, magic powers, cult, martial arts things happen in the first place. And that is the overly cooperative training partner. I had an experience a number of years ago that there was this new guy came into the gym really eager to learn the sport of mixed martial arts. And I was showing him some move, some technique. I don't remember which one, but a sweep probably. And I'm demonstrating this move, and before I even execute the move, he falls over on his back. And I ask him, why did you do that? And he said, I thought I was not trying to be a jerk or anything. I'm just trying to, do what I'm supposed to do. And I said, well, if you're physically forced to, then that's what you do because you have to, but don't fall down. And he was like, oh, it was this light bulb. And I think what ends up happening is the guys who end up staying in these cults are guys who come in with the right attitude about learning my way. I want to learn it. Who are in this position, they can be horribly. They see that, and they example people who are like, yeah, they leave immediately. But guys, cooperative stay. and because they're very, very susceptible to suggestion. I made this video recently about this Aikido guy. Not so much about him, but just a technique he was showing, and it was kind of a goofy technique. He has like 3 of his students grab him, and he kind of wiggles a little bit, and they all fall on the ground. It's kind of funny to watch. And I just made a joke video where like, hey, let's try this out in the gym, and against resistance, my students are all kicking me and throwing on the ground and stuff, and we laugh at it. It's all in fun. But I watched a few of this guy's other videos, and they're mostly about philosophy. And his philosophy is, it's interesting. And I would say a lot of it is based on correct principles. And I included a little snippet about that in the video, and I said, please don't go over to this guy's channel and make fun of him or anything like that. That's not what I'm about.
Yeah.
But I got a lot of messages from this guy's students saying, strongly worded, I wouldn't say irate or over the top or anything like students who shall not be mentioned, but strongly worded, like, you've got to meet this guy in person because he can really do these things in real life. At which point I was like, man. I don't live anywhere close to where this guy lives, but man, if you do, you should see what is up with these claims they're making. But the overly cooperative training partner, because if you fall down when the laws of physics say you should not, there's a problem there.
Yeah, man, I get all kinds of stuff. Somebody sent me this thing that they said basically there was an instructor in their town who was completely blind, but he was a kickboxing instructor, and that he was openly sparring with students. I'd be fascinating to me. Like, I'd be curious, because saying that on paper, you would imagine like, okay, well, they're standing away from each other, and he's dodging punches because he's sensing them or something like that. That's kind of how it was worded to me. But then in my head, I'm like, well, it's really interesting if he would actually, like, if he was blind, but he was like, they were compensating, like they would start off close to where he could feel what was going on, and like he would kind of
that would make a huge difference.
Yeah, so like I'm fascinated by stuff like that because people like to over exaggerate online. So I'm more like, okay, well, you say he's blind, maybe he is, but like, for instance, like a art like jiu-jitsu, where like 9 times out of 10 you're starting off way closer, like for a sport anyway. You're starting off closer. Your hands are already kind of connected to each other a little bit if you're not doing takedowns, and I would imagine if you're blind, you're probably pulling guard, like, hey, fucking, I'm on the ground. All right, I'm coming at you.
Oh, yeah, you can grapple blind, no problem. But striking outside of the pocket, that's a different issue. Yeah. Like, I actually have a blind spot in one eye. I got that from my last fight, the one that put me into retirement. And man, that was game-changing in a lot of ways, especially as a coach. And, in some ways it's a blessing in disguise because, it got me to rely on my other senses rather than trying to see the details of everything, especially in grappling. Because in grappling, what do you see? Like some dude's armpit in your face. So we don't need to rely on our sight as much as we think we do in that. But striking, man, that's a different thing. Like I love putting on a blindfold and doing like speed bag work or double and bag or some of those moving bags, because you can sense the rhythm and the timing and all these other things that have nothing to do with sight. And people they're incredibly impressed by that. They really shouldn't, because it's not that hard to do. But
well, I mean,
it's fun.
How much force you, especially for a double end bag. I mean, as soon as you throw the punch, you should be moving your head afterwards. Like it's going to be coming back at you. I've done it enough times, and that kind of stuff to mess around with, man. Like just throwing punches on the double end ball, and you throw an elbow in there, or you like throw upward elbows, or like I used to love to just like do like almost like Wing Chun type movements on it, just because like rolling through like your cross to your elbow, and if you're doing Muay Thai, you throw your cross and you throw your elbow, right? But if you're doing like a diagonal, but if you're doing Wing Chun, it's called the Bong style. And so like people like don't understand like these arts mix together so much. Like there's only so many ways your body can move. The only difference is like how you put them together in the sequence and how you put them together as when you're fighting people. Like people make fun of Wing Chun so much that they forget there's so much Wing Chun and other shit that they're doing. Like Pak Sao. Like you've never slapped someone's hand away for like a pat. Like Pak Sao is done a little differently. It's a little bit more of a core thing, but same shit, slapping hand. Or like a Lap Sao, pulling hand. Like you've never pulled someone's fucking hand. It's the same shit. Or like guys like back in the day, you were saying Jeremy Horn. And Jeremy Horn used to do like cheat out with people just to get like the sensitivity and stuff like that. Like I have a hard time like making fun of particular arts. It's usually not the art that's the issue. It's usually the practitioner who's taking advantage of the students that's the issue. You know, that's just my opinion anyway.
Yeah, sure.
But,
yeah,
so
man,
right
absolutely.
now, we are at our hour. I appreciate the hell out of you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it for you taking the hour to come talk to me. Thank you for that. You know, I'm glad that so many people were able to hop in and watch. People were coming in and out, but this will be available on YouTube. Before we leave, I like to ask 2 questions to wrap things up. One, I like to ask the same question out of everybody because they're my favorite stories. I love stories from the dojo, stuff that most people would not know about unless you were in the studio at the time you were in the studio. And it could be something fun. It could be somebody came in who had a lot of bravado, who tried to just beat everyone up. It could be a hobo came in, and whatever it is, stuff that happens in the dojo. Do you have any one story that sticks out to you from your time training that you're like, man, this one thing happened in the dojo?
Okay. You know, I've had a bunch of experiences of people coming in, you know, trying to test me and, you know, none of those are really memorable, but one, probably the most memorable story, the story that every coach wants to tell. I'll tell that to you right now. So I showed up to teach a jiu-jitsu class one afternoon. There was one guy there, a new guy. And he was, you know, this Chinese guy named Royce Won, and he was fat. Like really, really fat. And there are, you know, obesity it's not as rampant in China as it is in other places in the world. And I was very tempted to just, you know, leave because I was tired and I was like, just one guy showed up today, but I thought, you know, I'm going to teach him. And I went over there and I started putting him through the warm-up, really basic, simple warm-up, and after 1 minute, man, he was done. He was just exhausted. He said, I have to stop. I'm so sorry, but I have to stop. And I thought, oh, man, that's it. He's done. He's coming back. But he was back the next day. He was always there before I was. And he came back the next day and the next day. And each day he did a little bit more of the warm-up and a little bit more and a little bit more. And he kept coming back. He came back for 2 years every single day. Every class I taught, he was there. And, you know, this guy went from being fat, out of shape, unable to move, essentially, to win fights. He did 12 amateur boxing matches, won most of them. He did 7 amateur Muay Thai fights. He did 2 amateur MMA fights. He did a jiu-jitsu tournament, won most of his fights. And that's a nice little touch on the story. That's fun to say, but I don't care about that. What I love about this is that this guy essentially through his actions explained to me why what I do matters. So I started filming him through his transition from, you know, just some schlub out on the street to a serious martial artist. And he asked me, like, Coach, why are you filming me? I said, I want to make a documentary about you because your story's inspiring. And he said, what are you talking about? I'm just a normal guy. And I said, that's exactly why you're inspiring, because you are a normal guy doing something extraordinary. And, you know, he's moved from Shanghai since then, but I keep in contact with him on a regular basis, still train with him. My best friends I've ever met in this world. And yeah, man, I love that story. That is my favorite story from the dojo.
That is awesome.
So
that is very inspiring to see somebody, because most people after the first time and they go, man, I suck, they just quit. They never come back. And that's awesome that he was able to have that, I guess you could say that manifest destiny to go, you know, if I just keep going, I will succeed.
Yeah.
And he just kept doing it and kept doing it. That's awesome, man. Congratulations. As a coach, you're right. That is the kind of story that a coach wants, because you helped somebody, you know, you actually change someone's life based off of the actions of you. Because I mean, you could have just told this guy to fuck off. You could have been like, dude, I'm tired. There's only one of you. I'm going home. But you chose to stay, and you know, who knows? That one moment could have changed that dude's life. You know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So shout out to Royce One. Probably not listening because he's over in China behind the Great Firewall, but you know,
Yeah.
I've talked to him enough in person. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And lastly, can you let people know how they can watch you, how they can follow you? You know, shout yourself out, basically.
okay, well, I'm on YouTube, Ramsey Dewey on YouTube. I think my channel is actually named Ballet Man because I started the channel like 13 years ago when YouTube first started, and I typed that in. But yeah, the channel address and the actual channel name is Ramsey Dewey. So just type Ramsey Dewey in there, you'll find me. And yeah, that's where I post most of my content. I do have an Instagram account I started recently. I don't really understand Instagram. I guess it's not that complicated, but I'm on YouTube. So yeah, check me out there.
All right, cool, man. Well, I appreciate you again. Thank you again for taking the time to come on the show. If I don't mention my sponsors, I'm sure they will probably disown me. So I will say thank you to MMA Pack. MMA Pack is basically a monthly subscription box where they will send you random stuff every month, man. It's $50. You get all kinds of stuff. There's t-shirts, MMA gloves, wrist wraps, supplements, all kinds of stuff is in there. I'm actually pretty excited because my first one will be coming to me soon, and I'll be doing an unboxing for that. So that's pretty cool. And Fight Back CBD. I didn't actually start using CBD until I got sponsored by them. And then when I started using them, I actually really enjoy the product. I think that it helps. It's kind of like weed without getting high. It helps. It helps you with like your muscle pains and all the soreness and stuff like that. So far, right now, I'm in week number 4 of using it after training. And I have to say, like, usually it takes roughly about 30 to 45 minutes for me. But after that, I feel phenomenal. It does help with the soreness. It does help a little bit with recovery because you don't feel like utter crap. You can function on it because it's not weed. So I think that it's awesome. But if you do weed, you can do that too. It'll probably have the same effect. But if you get drug tested, you might want to try the CBD. So just tossing that out there. But yeah, man, thank you so much. Again, I appreciate that. And I guess I'm going to let you go, man. You have a fantastic day.
Hey, you too. Thank you.